Get this man out of first class. I don't feel safe with his type sitting near decent people.
The words sliced through the hushed atmosphere of American Airways Flight 1847's first-class cabin like a blade through silk. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The morning sun, streaming through oval windows, seemed to dim as tension filled the space between Chicago O'Hare's gate and Atlanta's destination. In exactly 18 minutes, the woman demanding his removal would discover this dangerous man once saved 200 lives, including her own brother's. Samuel Sam Brooks sat in seat 2A, his weathered hands folded calmly in his lap. At 52, he carried himself with the quiet dignity of a man who had seen too much but never let it break him. His faded military surplus jacket hung loose over broad shoulders that had once carried wounded soldiers to safety. The baseball cap, pulled low over his eyes, couldn't hide the small scar running from his left temple to his jaw. A souvenir from an IED explosion in Kandahar that had earned him a Purple Heart and a lifetime of invisible wounds. He hadn't said a word since boarding. He'd simply shown his ticket to the flight attendant, stowed his single duffel bag overhead, and settled into his seat with the careful movements of a man whose body remembered pain. His ticket, purchased with his VA disability check, represented 3 months of saving. First class wasn't a luxury for Sam. It was a necessity. His back couldn't handle coach seats anymore, not after the shrapnel and surgeries. The woman in seat 1B was everything Sam was not. Victoria Chambers, 45, corporate lawyer at Manning & Associates, diamond-level frequent flyer, wore her wealth like armor. Her Hermes handbag cost more than Sam's monthly disability check. Her Louboutin heels clicked against the cabin floor as she stood blocking the aisle, creating a human roadblock of indignation. "Excuse me," Victoria snapped her fingers at Jessica Martinez, the lead flight attendant. Jessica, 28, had been flying this route for 4 years. She'd seen difficult passengers before, but something in Victoria's tone made her stomach clench. "Miss, you have a situation here." Jessica hurried over her practiced smile, wavering. "Good morning, Miss Chambers. Welcome aboard. Is something wrong with your seat?" "Not my seat," Victoria hissed, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at Sam. "Him. There's obviously been a mistake. I believe maintenance crew is still resting in the first-class cabin." Sam opened one eye. It was a calm, dark eye that had seen mortar fire and sunrise prayers, insurgent attacks, and children's laughter in Afghan villages. He looked at Victoria, then looked away, closing his eye again. In his mind, his mother's voice echoed from 30 years ago. "Son, you serve with honor. Don't let anyone make you feel less than." Jessica blinked, confused. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but look at him." Victoria's voice rose an octave, ensuring the entire cabin could hear. "He's wearing construction clothes. That jacket probably hasn't been washed in months. You need to escort him back to economy or wherever people like him belong before he makes the other passengers uncomfortable." From row 3, Elena Rodriguez, a 30-year-old social media manager, discreetly raised her phone. She'd been planning to take photos of clouds for her Instagram, but this was something else entirely, something that needed to be recorded. Her thumb found the video button. Amy Thompson, the junior flight attendant, stood frozen near the galley. At 24, she was new to this route, new to the casual cruelty that money could buy. Her training had covered turbulence and emergency procedures, but not this. Not how to handle prejudice dressed in Chanel. Ma'am Jessica said carefully, "Mr. Brooks is in his correct seat." I checked his boarding pass myself. Victoria's face flushed crimson. "You checked it? Did you check if it was stolen? Look at him. Does he look like he can afford a $200 ticket? He's probably using fraudulent miles or someone else's credit card. I am a Diamond Medallion member, and I demand you recheck him thoroughly." Sam sat up slowly. His voice was low, gravelly, like stones shifting in a riverbed. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to get home. Been traveling 18 hours straight." Victoria gasped, clutching her pearls as if he had pulled a weapon. "Did you hear that? He's being aggressive with me? People like you should know your place. This isn't a Greyhound bus." The words hung in the recycled air, heavy and ugly. Elena's phone caught it all. In the background, other passengers shifted uncomfortably. A businessman in row 4 looked up from his Financial Times, frowning. An elderly woman covered her mouth with her hand. People like what exactly, Sam asked quietly, but his question carried the weight of centuries. Victoria stumbled. She hadn't expected him to push back. In her world, people like Sam stayed quiet, accepted their place, disappeared when asked. "You know what I mean." "No, ma'am, I don't. Please enlighten me." Jessica stepped between them, her hands trembling slightly. She pressed the intercom button. "Senior purser to first class, please." Amy finally found her voice. "Ms. Chambers, perhaps you'd be more comfortable if we could—" "I'll be comfortable when he's gone," Victoria snapped. She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling security. There's a disruptive passenger threatening first-class guests." Elena's video was now 3 minutes long. Without taking her eyes off the screen, she opened TikTok and started a live stream titled "Watching Discrimination Happen in Real Time" on Flight 1847. Within seconds, viewers began joining. Sam remembered another morning decades ago. He was 19, fresh out of basic training, boarding a plane for his first deployment. He'd worn his dress uniform with pride, thinking the world would see a soldier, a protector, a young man ready to serve his country. Instead, an older passenger had looked at him and muttered, "Great, another gang member with government permission to carry a gun." That day, Sam had stayed silent. Today felt different. The senior purser arrived. Joyce Williams, a stern woman in her 50s with 20 years of airline experience, took in the scene quickly. Agitated passenger, calm man in window seat, phone cameras recording. This was either going to be resolved quietly or become a corporate nightmare. "What seems to be the issue?" Joyce asked, her tone professional but tight. "I want him removed." Victoria pointed at Sam. "He's a security risk. He's scruffy, he's rude, and he doesn't belong here. I paid full price for this seat, not to sit next to a vagrant." Joyce looked at Sam. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass again, just to clear this up?" Sam reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Victoria flinched dramatically. "He's reaching for a weapon." "Everyone get back." Passengers turned in their seats. Someone in the back half stood. Elena's live stream viewer count hit 1,000 and climbing. The comments were already flowing. "This is horrible. Someone help this man. She's insane." Sam froze his hand halfway in his pocket. Then, moving very deliberately, he pulled out a crumpled boarding pass and his military ID. "Just my ticket, ma'am. And my veteran's card." Joyce took both documents. She scanned the boarding pass. "Seat 2A, Samuel Brooks. Valid ticket." She looked at the military ID. "Thank you for your service, sir." Victoria snatched the phone she'd been threatening to use and dialed airport security. "Yes, this is Victoria Chambers, Diamond member on American Airways Flight 1847. There's a belligerent man in first class. He's threatening passengers and crew. Yes, I need security immediately." The call was loud enough for everyone to hear. Elena's viewers were now over 2,000, and the comments were unanimously supporting Sam. Someone had already screenshot Victoria's Diamond member information from her visible luggage tag and was sharing it on Twitter. In the corporate command center at American Airways headquarters in Fort Worth, automated systems were triggering alerts. Amanda Foster, VP of Customer Relations, was getting her second cup of coffee when her phone buzzed with an urgent social media notification. Flight 1847, discrimination, viral video, live streaming. "Oh, hell," Amanda muttered, setting down her coffee and pulling up the monitoring dashboard. Back on the plane, Sam looked at Amy, the young flight attendant, whose eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I'm sorry about this," he said softly. "Sir, you haven't done anything wrong," Amy whispered back. "Doesn't matter," Sam replied. "It never does." The heavy thud of boots echoed on the jet bridge. Security was coming. 2 TSA agents and a Port Authority police officer boarded the aircraft. The lead officer, Carlos Mendez, was a 15-year veteran of airport security who had seen his share of passenger disputes. Behind him, officers Jennifer Walsh and Robert Kim scanned the first-class cabin, immediately noting the tension and the phones recording. "Who called for security?" Officer Mendez asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who dealt with crisis situations daily. Victoria stepped forward, her chin raised. "I did. That man," she pointed at Sam, "has been threatening passengers and disrupting the flight." Elena's live stream now had 5,000 viewers. The comment section was exploding with outrage, and someone had already created the hashtag #Flight1947. Another passenger, Marcus Williams, a journalist for the Chicago Tribune traveling in row 5, had started live tweeting the incident to his 50,000 followers. Officer Mendez approached Sam's seat. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step out into the aisle so we can talk." Sam unbuckled his seatbelt and stood slowly. At 6'2", his frame filled the narrow space between seats, but his movements were careful, non-threatening. He kept his hands visible. Years of being a black man in America had taught him how to survive these moments. "What's the complaint?" Sam asked calmly. "Ma'am says you've been aggressive and disruptive," Officer Mendez replied, but his tone suggested he was already skeptical. Sam's military bearing was obvious to another veteran. Officer Jessica Martinez spoke up. "Mr. Brooks hasn't caused any problems. He's been nothing but polite since boarding." Victoria whirled around. "She's lying to protect him. He threatened me when I asked about his ticket. Look at his hands. Those are fighter's hands. He's clearly been in prison or worse." Elena's phone captured Victoria's words clearly. The live stream comments were brutal. "She's unhinged. Those are service scars, you idiot." How is this legal officer Mendez looked at Sam's hands? He saw what Elena's viewers saw, what anyone with military experience would recognize: the controlled movements of a soldier, the faded scars of someone who'd served in combat zones, the calluses of honest work. "Sir, can you show me some identification?" Sam handed over his driver's license and military ID without hesitation. Officer Mendez examined both carefully. His eyebrows raised slightly when he read the military designation. "Army Rangers, 3rd Infantry Division." Mendez read aloud. "Purple Heart recipient." The atmosphere in the cabin shifted perceptibly. Several passengers who had been watching with uncertainty now looked at Victoria with disgust. "A business executive in row 3. Thomas Anderson stood up. "Officer, I'm a federal judge," Anderson said. "I've been watching this entire interaction. This woman has been harassing Mr. Brooks since he boarded. He's done absolutely nothing wrong." Victoria's face went pale. "Judge or not, you don't understand the situation. These people—" "Finish that sentence," Thomas Anderson said sharply. "Please finish it on camera so everyone can hear exactly what kind of person you are." Meanwhile, in American Airways headquarters, Amanda Foster was on a conference call with Legal Public Relations and the CEO's office. The social media monitoring system was showing exponential growth in negative mentions. Flight 1947 was trending in Chicago, Atlanta, and starting to spread nationally. "How bad is it?" asked Helena Torres, the CEO, joining the emergency call from her car en route to the office. "Bad and getting worse," Amanda replied. "We have multiple live streams, a federal judge as a witness, and a Purple Heart veteran being harassed by a Diamond member. The optics are catastrophic. What's our liability if we don't handle this correctly? Massive. The video is already being shared by veterans organizations. Vietnam Veterans of America just retweeted it. On the plane, Victoria was doubling down. I don't care about his military record. That was decades ago. Right now, he's a security risk. Look at him. He could have PTSD. These veterans come back damaged, violent. I've read the statistics. The words hit Sam like a physical blow. He'd heard variations of this his entire adult life. The assumption that his service had broken him made him dangerous. In her ignorance, Victoria had touched the deepest wound carried by thousands of veterans, the feeling that their sacrifice made them suspect in their own country. Elena's live stream viewers had grown to 8,000. Someone in the chat identified Sam's unit and shared links to news stories about the 3rd Infantry Division's service in Afghanistan. The narrative was building in real-time. Decorated veteran humiliated by wealthy passenger. Ma'am, Officer Mendez said to Victoria, Mr. Brooks' identification checks out. His boarding pass is valid. I don't see any evidence of disruptive behavior. Then you're not looking hard enough, Victoria snapped. I know people. I know the CEO of this airline. This man is making me feel unsafe, and that should be enough. Officer Walsh, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. Sir, she addressed Sam, have you made any threats or aggressive gestures toward this passenger? No, ma'am, Sam replied. I've barely spoken to her. Amy Thompson, the junior flight attendant, found her courage. Officer, that's true. He's been completely respectful. He thanked me for helping with his bag, asked for water, and that's it. Victoria turned on Amy like a striking snake. You're just trying to cover for your poor judgment in letting him board. Actually, Jessica Martinez interrupted. I was the one who verified his boarding pass. Mr. Brooks is upgraded to first class using his veteran status benefits. Everything is legitimate. The mention of veteran status benefits created another wave of support in the comments. Elena's live stream was being shared across multiple platforms. Someone had created a Twitter moment called Justice for Sergeant Brooks, even though his rank hadn't been officially confirmed yet. In the corporate command center, the crisis was escalating beyond social media. Phone calls were coming in from military advocacy groups, civil rights organizations, and news outlets. The stock price had already dropped 2 points in pre-market trading. We need to act, CEO Helena Torres said into the conference call. What's our immediate response? Amanda Foster was watching the live streams on multiple screens. We need to support the veteran and de-escalate immediately. If we don't, this becomes a national story about an airline allowing discrimination against a Purple Heart recipient. Do it. Whatever it takes. Back on the plane, Sam was reaching his limit. Not with anger, but with the familiar exhaustion that came from having to prove his humanity again and again. He looked at Officer Mendez. Officer, I'd like to speak with the pilot. Victoria laughed bitterly. Oh, now you want special treatment. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You people always want what Thomas Anderson, the federal judge, stood up fully. Please finish that sentence in front of these cameras and this federal judge. Let's hear exactly what you people want. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. She was beginning to realize that her usual tactics weren't working, that the room was turning against her, but her privilege was so ingrained she couldn't stop. I want to speak to the captain, she demanded instead. Unknown to everyone in the cabin, Captain David Mitchell was already aware of the situation. The 48-year-old pilot with 20 years of commercial aviation experience and a prior military career had been monitoring the situation through crew communications. He'd also received a priority call from corporate headquarters. More importantly, something about the name Samuel Brooks' 3rd Infantry Division was nagging at his memory. Captain Mitchell pulled up the passenger manifest on his tablet and cross-referenced it with a database he hadn't accessed in years. His military service records. The search results made his blood run cold. Samuel Sam Brooks, Staff Sergeant, later Sergeant Major. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Combat Action Badge. Afghanistan, 2019. Operation Desert Shield. Captain Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as he pulled up the after-action reports from his own service. He'd been a helicopter pilot, then flying rescue missions for ground units pinned down by enemy fire. His aircraft call sign had been Rescue 7. There it was, in black and white ground unit coordination provided by Sergeant Major S. Brooks, resulted in successful extraction of 8 wounded personnel under heavy enemy fire. Recommend unit citation for exceptional performance under combat conditions. Sam Brooks had saved his life. Sam Brooks had saved his entire crew's lives. Captain Mitchell stood up from his seat, took off his headset, and headed for the cabin door. In the first-class cabin, the standoff continued. Victoria had called her lawyer, her assistant, and was threatening to call the media herself, apparently unaware that the media was already watching through Elena's live stream. "This is harassment," she declared. "I am being discriminated against for trying to ensure passenger safety." Elena's comment section was having none of it. "She's discriminating against a veteran. How is she the victim here? Someone please remove this woman." The live stream had reached 12,000 viewers and was climbing steadily. Multiple recordings of the incident were now circulating on every major social media platform. Sam sat back down, exhaustion evident in his movements. The adrenaline was wearing off and the old pain in his back was flaring up. He closed his eyes and tried to find the calm center that had gotten him through firefights and IED explosions. Sir Amy Thompson appeared beside his seat with a bottle of water. "You didn't finish the one I brought you earlier." "Thank you," Miss Sam said quietly. Such a small kindness, but after 20 minutes of having his humanity questioned, it meant everything. The cockpit door opened. Captain David Mitchell stepped into the first-class cabin wearing his full uniform, 4 gold stripes gleaming on his shoulders, captain's wings polished to mirror brightness. At 48, he carried himself with the authority of someone who had commanded both military and commercial aircraft through dangerous situations. His appearance immediately changed the energy in the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Captain Mitchell," he announced to the cabin. "I apologize for the delay. We're addressing a passenger concern before departure." Victoria immediately stepped forward. "Captain, thank you. I've been trying to get someone in authority to handle this situation. This man," she pointed at Sam, "has been threatening passengers and creating a disturbance." Captain Mitchell looked at Sam. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or professional assessment. He'd seen enough military personnel to recognize the bearing, the controlled posture, the calm eyes that had seen combat. "Sir, I understand there's been some confusion about your seating assignment." "No confusion," Captain Sam replied calmly. "I have a valid ticket for this seat. I've shown my identification multiple times. Elena's live stream now had 15,000 viewers. The comment section was moving so fast it was impossible to read individual messages, but the sentiment was clear, overwhelming support for Sam, and growing anger at Victoria's behavior. Marcus Williams, the journalist, had moved to the aisle to get better photos. His Twitter updates were being shared by major news accounts, celebrities, and political figures. The hashtag Flight 1847 was now trending nationally. Captain Officer Mendez said the passenger's documentation is all in order. Staff Sergeant Brooks is traveling on a legitimate ticket. Captain Mitchell's head snapped up. "Did you say Staff Sergeant Brooks?" "Actually, sir," Sam interjected quietly, "it's Sergeant Major retired, 3rd Infantry Division." The captain's face went completely white. His hand instinctively moved toward his chest where pilot's wings pinned over his heart seemed to suddenly carry more weight. Victoria, oblivious to the captain's reaction, pressed her advantage. "Rank doesn't matter. He doesn't belong in first class. Look at his clothes, his appearance. This is about maintaining standards." Elena zoomed in on Captain Mitchell's expression. Even through the phone screen, viewers could see something significant was happening. The comments exploded. "The captain knows him. Something big is about to happen. This is insane." Meanwhile, Amy Thompson was discreetly taking photos with her personal phone. Not for social media, but for evidence. Her hands were shaking as she documented Victoria's behavior and the officers' responses. She'd never seen anything like this in 4 years of flying. Jessica Martinez was on the phone with the operations center updating them on the situation. "Yes, sir. We have multiple passengers recording. The federal judge in row 3 is prepared to testify if needed." The veteran appears calm and cooperative. Thomas Anderson, the federal judge, had been taking careful notes on his phone. As a federal prosecutor before ascending to the bench, he'd seen discrimination cases, but rarely this blatant and this well-documented. "Ms. Chambers, Judge Anderson said, I want to make sure you understand that your statements are being recorded by multiple devices and witnessed by law enforcement officers. Are you certain you want to continue making claims about this passenger's fitness to fly based on his appearance?" Victoria's confidence wavered slightly, but her privilege was too deeply ingrained to let her back down. "I have every right to feel safe. If this man has combat experience, he could be suffering from PTSD. Veterans with PTSD can be unpredictable violent." The words hit the cabin like a slap. Several passengers gasped audibly. Elena's comment section exploded with anger and military families sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Sam's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Captain Mitchell noticed the reaction, the slight tension in the shoulders, the controlled breathing. He'd seen it before in other veterans who'd been attacked for their service rather than honored for it. "Ma'am," Captain Mitchell said, his voice carrying the authority of 20 years of command, "I'm going to need you to stop making unfounded claims about this passenger's mental health." "I'm not making unfounded claims," Victoria shot back. "It's statistics. These combat veterans come back damaged. I've read the reports. Elena's live stream viewer count hit 20,000. Someone in the comments had identified Victoria Chambers and was sharing information about her law firm, her social media accounts, and her professional background. The internet was mobilizing. In the corporate headquarters, CEO Helena Torres was watching the live streams herself now. The crisis management team had expanded to include the board of directors, who were being briefed via emergency conference call. "This is a nightmare scenario," Amanda Foster reported. "We have a decorated veteran being discriminated against by a high-value customer, all captured on multiple live streams with tens of thousands of viewers." "What's our immediate action plan?" Helena asked. "Support the veteran address the discrimination immediately, and prepare for significant media attention. This is going to be national news within hours. Do it, and find out everything we can about Sergeant Major Brooks. I want to know exactly who we're dealing with." Back on the plane, Captain Mitchell was studying Sam's face intently. The name, the unit, the timeline. It was all adding up to something that seemed impossible but felt increasingly certain. "Sergeant Major Brooks," the captain said carefully. "3rd Infantry Division. What was your operational area in Afghanistan?" "Kandahar Province, sir. FOB Chapman and surrounding areas, 2018 to 2019. Captain Mitchell's breathing became shallow. Elena's camera caught the change in his demeanor, and the comments began speculating about what was happening. "Were you involved in Operation Desert Shield, November 2019? Sam's expression shifted slightly. Operation Desert Shield wasn't widely known outside military circles. It had been a series of coordinated operations to secure supply routes and extract wounded personnel from contested areas. "Yes, sir, I was." Victoria, sensing that the conversation was moving away from her complaints, inserted herself back into the exchange. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're giving him special treatment because he's military. This is discrimination against civilian passengers." The irony was so profound that several passengers laughed out loud. Elena's comment section was roasting Victoria mercilessly. She just claimed discrimination for being anti-discrimination. The audacity is incredible. How can someone be this tone-deaf? Judge Anderson stood up again. "Ms. Chambers, as a federal judge, I want to clarify something for you. Discrimination based on race, ethnicity, or military status is illegal. Questioning someone's right to travel based on their appearance or veteran status could constitute a civil rights violation." Victoria's face flushed red. "I'm not discriminating. I'm trying to ensure safety." Based on what specific threat the judge pressed? Has Mr. Brooks made any threatening statements or gestures? He looks dangerous. How does someone look dangerous? Please, be specific. Victoria was trapped. Every answer would expose her prejudice further, but her privileged worldview wouldn't let her admit wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Officer Mendez was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Victoria's statements. As a Hispanic officer, he'd experienced his own share of profiling, and he was watching it happen in real time to a decorated veteran. "Ma'am," Officer Mendez said, "unless you can point to specific threatening behavior, we can't remove a passenger based on appearance or assumptions about their mental health." Elena's live stream was being shared by major social media accounts now. Veterans organizations, civil rights groups, and celebrity activists were amplifying the story. The viewer count had passed 25,000 and was climbing rapidly. Someone in the comments had found and shared articles about Sergeant Major Brooks's service. His unit had been involved in several high-profile rescue operations. Photos from Afghanistan showed him receiving commendations, working with local communities training Afghan security forces. The narrative was building decorated war hero discriminated against by wealthy passenger. Captain Mitchell was still processing the connection he was making. If this was the same Sergeant Major Brooks who had coordinated the ground response during Operation Desert Shield, then this man had literally saved his life and the lives of his crew. Sergeant Major Captain Mitchell said, "During Operation Desert Shield, did you coordinate with aerial rescue units?" "Yes, sir. Multiple operations with helicopter crews extracting wounded personnel. Do you remember Rescue 7? Sam's eyes widened slightly. Rescue 7 had been the call sign for the helicopter crew he'd guided through enemy fire to extract 8 wounded soldiers. It had been one of the most dangerous operations of his deployment. "Yes, sir. I remember Rescue 7. Captain Mitchell's voice was barely above a whisper. "I was the pilot of Rescue 7. The cabin went completely silent. Elena's phone captured the moment perfectly. The recognition dawning on both men's faces, the weight of shared history settling over the scene. Victoria, oblivious to the significance of what had just happened, was still focused on her original complaint. "I don't care about your war stories. I want him removed from first class." The comment section of Elena's live stream exploded. Viewers were realizing they were watching something extraordinary unfold. The pilot knows him. They served together. "This woman is about to get destroyed." Amy Thompson was crying openly now, understanding that she was witnessing something profound. Jessica Martinez had stopped pretending to do other tasks and was watching intently. Judge Anderson recognized the significance as well. He'd presided over enough veterans' cases to understand what Operation Desert Shield meant, what kind of courage it took to coordinate rescue operations under fire. Officer Mendez stepped back, giving the two men space. His own military experience told him this was bigger than a passenger complaint. Sam looked up at Captain Mitchell with recognition dawning in his own eyes. "Sir, were you the pilot who extracted Bravo Company from Hill 472? "I was. You saved 8 good men that day, sir." "No, Sergeant Major," Captain Mitchell said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved them, and you saved my crew. Your coordination under fire made that extraction possible." Victoria was growing frustrated with being ignored. "Excuse me, but I'm still waiting for this man to be removed." Elena's live stream viewer count hit 30,000. News outlets were starting to pick up the story. Military Times had posted about it. CNN was monitoring social media mentions. The story was spreading beyond aviation circles into mainstream news. What happened next would change everything. Captain Mitchell straightened to his full height and executed a perfect military salute. Not the casual salute of a former soldier, but the crisp regulation salute of one combat veteran honoring another. "Staff Sergeant Sam Brooks, you are directly responsible for saving the lives of myself and 7 crew members on November 15, 2019. It is my honor to have you aboard my aircraft." The silence in the cabin was absolute. Elena's live stream captured every moment in perfect clarity. The captain's unwavering salute, Sam's surprised expression, Victoria's dawning horror as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. Sam slowly rose from his seat and returned the salute. "Just doing my job, sir." "Your job saved American lives," Captain Mitchell replied, maintaining his salute for several more seconds before dropping his hand. Elena's comment section was moving too fast to read. The viewer count hit 40,000 and was climbing exponentially. Screenshots of the moment were already being shared across every platform. Someone had started a TikTok account called Justice for Sergeant Brooks that gained 10,000 followers in minutes. Victoria's face had gone from red to pale white. For the first time since boarding, she seemed to grasp that her assumptions had been catastrophically wrong. I didn't know," she stammered. "You didn't want to know," Judge Anderson said from his seat. "You made assumptions based on appearance and acted on prejudice." Marcus Williams, the journalist, was live tweeting the developing story to his growing audience. His followers had grown from 50,000 to 75,000 in the past hour as people shared his posts. News organizations were reaching out for quotes and permission to use his photos. Breaking combat veteran who saved pilot's life in Afghanistan being discriminated against by passenger on same pilot's commercial flight. This is surreal. Flight 1947. The tweet was retweeted 500 times in the first minute. In American Airways headquarters, the crisis management team was watching multiple live streams simultaneously. The social media monitoring system was showing exponential growth across all platforms. "We're now trending on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook," Amanda Foster reported to CEO Helena Torres. The story has been picked up by Veterans Today, Military Times, and CNN is asking for a statement. "What's our exposure with the complainant Victoria Chambers? Senior partner at Manning & Associates Diamond member for 8 years, spends approximately $200,000 annually with us. And the veteran Sergeant Major Samuel Brooks, Purple Heart Bronze Star exemplary military record. He's flying on veteran benefits, but his story is exactly the kind of thing that could destroy us if we handle it wrong." Helena Torres was quiet for a moment. "Support the veteran. Whatever it costs us with Chambers, it's nothing compared to what we'll lose if we're seen as anti-military." Back on the plane, Captain Mitchell was addressing the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about the man Ms. Chambers has been trying to remove." Victoria tried to interrupt. "Captain, this is inappropriate, ma'am. You've been inappropriate since the moment you boarded. Please sit down." The authority in his voice was absolute. Victoria sat. Elena's live stream viewer count passed 50,000. The video was being shared by military families, veterans organizations, and civil rights activists. Someone had created a hashtag Honor Our Veterans that was trending nationally. In November 2019, Captain Mitchell continued. "I was a helicopter pilot in Afghanistan. My crew was tasked with extracting wounded soldiers from a hot landing zone. Sergeant Major Brooks, seated in 2A, coordinated that extraction under heavy enemy fire. His tactical knowledge and courage under pressure saved 8 wounded soldiers and my entire air crew. The cabin was completely silent except for the soft sound of Amy Thompson crying. Jessica Martinez was recording on her phone, not for social media, but for the company's legal protection. This man, Captain Mitchell gestured toward Sam, is a decorated American hero. He has earned the right to sit anywhere on any aircraft in this country." Elena's comment section was overwhelmed with messages of support. "This is incredible. That woman should be ashamed. Thank you for your service. Sergeant Major Brooks." Sam remained standing, clearly uncomfortable with the attention but maintaining his dignity. "Captain, I appreciate your words. But, sir, with respect, you've been quiet long enough. Let America see who you really are." Victoria was sinking deeper into her seat, finally understanding the depth of her mistake. Her phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. Someone had found her LinkedIn profile, her law firm's website, her social media accounts. The internet had identified her completely. Officer Mendez stepped forward. "Ms. Chambers, I need to ask, do you want to press charges against Mr. Brooks for any threatening behavior No, because based on what I've witnessed, Mr. Brooks has exhibited no threatening behavior whatsoever. In fact, you've made several unfounded accusations against a decorated veteran." Judge Anderson stood again. "Officer, as a federal judge, I want to state for the record that I've witnessed no threatening behavior from Mr. Brooks. However, I have witnessed what appears to be discrimination based on race and veteran status." Elena's live stream was now approaching 75,000 viewers. Major news outlets were requesting permission to use the footage. The story was spreading beyond social media into mainstream news channels. Amy Thompson approached Victoria's seat with remarkable courage for someone so young. "Ma'am, I think you should apologize. This has all been a misunderstanding." "No, ma'am," Amy replied with unexpected firmness. "This has been discrimination and everyone can see it." The young flight attendant's words carried the weight of witnessed truth. Elena's viewers were praising her courage in the comments, "Respect for the young flight attendant. She's braver than the grown woman harassing a veteran." Meanwhile, corporate headquarters was receiving calls from veterans organizations, civil rights groups, and media outlets. The American Legion had issued a statement supporting Sergeant Major Brooks. The NAACP was monitoring the situation for civil rights violations. Helena Torres was on a conference call with her legal team PR department and board members. "We need to take immediate action. This story is exploding everywhere." "What kind of action?" asked the legal counsel. "Support the veteran address the discrimination and show we have zero tolerance for this behavior. That could mean banning a Diamond member who spends 6 figures annually with us. It means doing the right thing. Calculate the cost of looking like we support discrimination against veterans." Victoria's phone rang. It was her law firm's managing partner. "Victoria, where are you on a plane? Why? Because you're trending on Twitter for harassing a war hero. Please tell me this video isn't real." Victoria looked around the cabin, suddenly seeing the cameras, the watching eyes, the recording devices for what they meant. Her life was being broadcast live to tens of thousands of people. "Richard, I can explain. Don't explain anything. Don't say another word until you talk to our crisis management team." The call ended. Victoria sat in stunned silence as the full weight of her situation settled in. Captain Mitchell was not finished. He turned to address the entire cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want everyone to understand what kind of man Ms. Chambers has been treating with such disrespect." Elena adjusted her phone to capture both the captain and Sam in the frame. "Sergeant Major Brooks didn't just save my crew. His unit was responsible for training Afghan security forces, building schools, and protecting humanitarian operations. He earned the Purple Heart when an IED exploded near his vehicle while he was protecting a convoy carrying medical supplies to civilians." The live stream comments were overwhelmingly supportive. "This man is a hero. She should be ashamed. Thank you for your service." Sam finally spoke up. "Captain, I appreciate this, but I didn't serve for recognition. I just want to get home to my family." "And you deserve to get there with dignity," Captain Mitchell replied. "The same dignity you fought to protect for all of us." Victoria attempted one last time to salvage the situation. "I want everyone to know this was a misunderstanding. I support our veterans." Ma'am, Judge Anderson interrupted. "Your support would have been shown by treating this veteran with respect from the beginning, not by trying to have him removed because of his appearance." Elena's viewer count passed 100,000. The hashtag Flight 1847 was trending worldwide now. International news outlets were picking up the story. Military families from around the globe were sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Officer Walsh, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Ms. Chambers, I'm recommending that this incident be documented in our report as a case of passenger harassment rather than passenger disruption. What does that mean? It means Mr. Brooks was the victim, not the perpetrator. Victoria's World was crumbling in real-time broadcast to over 100,000 viewers and shared millions of times across social media platforms. What happened next would determine not just the resolution of this flight, but the future of how America treats its veterans. Captain Mitchell reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out his phone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something I've never done in 20 years of commercial aviation. He dialed a number from memory. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. This is Helena Torres, CEO of American Airways. Elena's live stream viewer count exploded past 150,000. The comment section was moving so fast it appeared as a blur of support and disbelief. Flight 1947 was now trending worldwide. Helena, this is Captain David Mitchell, Flight 1847. David, thank God you called. We're monitoring the situation. Are you safe to talk? I'm on speaker in the first-class cabin. We have a situation that requires immediate corporate intervention. Victoria looked like she might faint. The CEO of the airline was on the phone, and she was the cause of the situation. I understand we have a passenger complaint involving a veteran. Helena, I need you to listen very carefully. The veteran being harassed on my aircraft is Sergeant Major Samuel Brooks. In Afghanistan, this man saved my life and the lives of my crew. He's a Purple Heart recipient who coordinated one of the most successful rescue operations in recent military history. Silence on the phone. Elena's camera captured every word, every expression, every moment of this unprecedented corporate intervention. Helena Torres's voice came back clear and firm. Captain Mitchell, please put Sergeant Major Brooks on the phone. Sam looked uncomfortable with the attention, but approached the phone. Captain Mitchell held out. Sergeant Major Brooks, this is Helena Torres, CEO of American Airways. First, I want to personally thank you for your service to our country. Thank you, ma'am, but that's not necessary. Sir, it's absolutely necessary. I understand you've been subjected to discriminatory treatment on my aircraft. I want you to know that such behavior is completely unacceptable and does not represent our company's values. Elena's comment section exploded with praise for the CEO's response. Finally, a CEO with backbone. This is how you handle discrimination. Respect. Victoria stood up suddenly. I demand to speak to Ms. Torres. I'm a Diamond member and this entire situation has been blown out of proportion. Helena Torres's voice came through crystal clear. Ms. Chambers, your membership status has been terminated. You are banned from all American Airways flights effective immediately. The cabin went dead silent. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You can't do this. I spend over $200,000 a year with this airline. I'll sue Ms. Chambers' discrimination against veterans and racial profiling are violations of federal law and our company policy. Your behavior has been witnessed by law enforcement, recorded by multiple passengers, and broadcast live to over 150,000 people. Our legal team will be reviewing this incident thoroughly. Judge Anderson nodded approvingly. Officer Mendez was taking detailed notes. Amy Thompson was openly smiling through her tears. Elena's live stream viewer count hit 200,000. The story was being covered live by CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. Military Times had made it their top story. Veterans organizations were issuing statements of support. Sergeant Major Brooks Helena continued, I want to personally invite you and your family to be our guests at any American Airways destination of your choice. All expenses paid. It's the least we can do. Sam shook his head. Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but I don't need special treatment. I just want to be treated with the same respect as any other paying passenger. Sir, you've been treated with disrespect on my watch. That makes this personal for me. Marcus Williams, the journalist, was capturing quotes and taking photos for what he knew would be the story of his career. His Twitter followers had grown to over 100,000 as people sought real-time updates on the situation. CEO just banned passenger live on phone offers decorated veteran compensation. This is justice in real time. Flight 1947. The tweet was shared 10,000 times in 5 minutes. Captain Mitchell took the phone back. Helena, there's something else. I want to make a formal recommendation that Sergeant Major Brooks be offered a position as a consultant for our Veteran Passenger Services program. Done. Sergeant Major, would you consider helping us ensure no veteran ever faces what you've experienced today? Sam was quiet for a long moment. The entire cabin waited for his response. Ma'am, if it means other veterans won't go through this, yes. Helena's comment section was overwhelmed with emotional responses. I'm crying. This is beautiful. Justice. Thank you both. Victoria was frantically trying to call her law firm, her insurance company, anyone who might help her understand the legal implications of what had just happened. Officer Mendez stepped forward. Ms. Torres, this is Officer Mendez, Port Authority. For our incident report, can you confirm that Ms. Chambers is no longer an American Airways passenger? Officer Victoria Chambers is permanently banned from American Airways. She should be removed from the aircraft immediately. Victoria's face went white. Removed? You can't remove me. I have a confirmed seat, ma'am, Officer Walsh said. Your confirmation was just revoked by the airline. You need to gather your belongings and deplane. The vindication was swift and absolute. Helena's viewers were celebrating in the comments justice served. Get her off the plane. This is karma. As Victoria gathered her things with trembling hands, Captain Mitchell made another announcement to the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to know that you've witnessed something important today. You've seen what happens when we stand up for what's right, when we refuse to tolerate discrimination against those who've served our country. Helena's live stream was approaching 300,000 viewers. The story was trending on every major platform. International news outlets were covering it as a story about American values and corporate responsibility. Amy Thompson approached Sam. Sergeant Major, I want to apologize for not speaking up sooner. Miss, you spoke up when it mattered. That took courage. Jessica Martinez added, Sir, it's been an honor to serve you today. Thank you for your patience with us. Thomas Anderson, the federal judge, stood and began applauding. The applause spread through the cabin until everyone except Victoria was clapping for Sam. Sam stood uncomfortably, clearly unused to such attention. Folks, I appreciate this, but I'm just a man trying to get home. The real heroes are the ones who didn't make it back. His humility in the face of vindication made the moment even more powerful. Helena's comment section was filled with emotional responses from military families, veterans, and supporters around the world. Officer Mendez escorted Victoria off the aircraft. As she walked up the jet bridge, her phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. Her social media accounts were being flooded with criticism. Her law firm was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, in the corporate headquarters, Helena Torres was addressing her executive team. I want a complete review of our passenger policies. I want mandatory training for all customer service personnel on treating veterans with respect. And I want a formal partnership with veterans organizations. Ma'am, this is going to cost us significant resources. Do you know what will cost us more? Being seen as an airline that tolerates discrimination against the people who fought for our freedom. Back on the plane, Captain Mitchell was preparing for departure. Sergeant Major, would you like to see the cockpit before we take off? I'd be honored, Captain. Helena's live stream followed them forward. The viewer count was still climbing as the story spread around the globe. In the cockpit, Captain Mitchell showed Sam the flight controls and explained the aircraft systems. But more importantly, they talked about Afghanistan, about the men they'd served with, about the transition to civilian life. Sir Sam said quietly, I want to thank you for standing up for me back there. Sergeant Major, you stood up for me and my crew when bullets were flying. Standing up for you in a plane cabin is the least I could do." Elena's camera captured their conversation through the open cockpit door. The live stream audience was witnessing something authentic and powerful. Two veterans supporting each other across the divide between military and civilian life. As they prepared for takeoff, Captain Mitchell made one final announcement to the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special passenger aboard today. Sergeant Major Samuel Brooks represents the best of America. Service, sacrifice, and dignity under pressure. It's my privilege to serve as his pilot today." The cabin erupted in applause again. Elena's live stream viewer count hit 400,000. The story was now leading news broadcasts around the world. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Sam looked out the window at the ground crew below. Some of them were pointing up at the plane, clearly aware of what had happened. A few ground crew members had gathered to salute as they passed. The story that had begun with discrimination and ignorance was ending with recognition and respect. But the real impact of Flight 1847 was just beginning. As Flight 1847 climbed to cruising altitude, the story was exploding across every conceivable platform. Elena's original live stream had ended when she lost signal, but recordings of it were circulating on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. The hashtag Flight 1847 had been used over 2 million times in the first 3 hours. Victoria Chambers sat in the American Airways customer service office at O'Hare International Airport, facing consequences she never could have imagined when she woke up that morning. Her Diamond membership, 8 years and over $1.5 million in spending, had been terminated. Her return ticket to Chicago was canceled. Her luggage was being retrieved from Flight 1847's cargo hold, Ms. Chambers said, "David Rivera, the airport's customer service manager, you'll need to book alternative transportation. American Airways will not be providing you passage on any of our aircraft." Victoria's hands were shaking as she tried to comprehend her situation. "This is insane. I'm being punished for trying to ensure passenger safety. Ma'am, based on the video evidence and witness statements, you engaged in discriminatory behavior against a decorated veteran. American Airways has a zero-tolerance policy for such conduct." Meanwhile, Victoria's law firm, Manning & Associates, was in crisis mode. The managing partner, Richard Sterling, was fielding calls from reporters, clients, and the firm's PR team. "Richard, we need to discuss Victoria's status," said the senior partner. "Her behavior is reflecting poorly on the firm. I understand the optics are bad. Bad. She's trending worldwide for harassing a Purple Heart recipient. We've already lost 3 major clients who've seen the video." In the air, Captain Mitchell was receiving constant updates from the company. American Airways stock had initially dropped 2 points when the story broke, but was now rising as investors responded positively to the company's swift action and CEO Helena Torres's decisive leadership. Captain Mitchell came Helena Torres's voice over the radio. "I wanted to update you on our immediate response." "Go ahead, Helena." "We're implementing the Brooks Protocol effective immediately. Enhanced protections for veteran passengers, mandatory sensitivity training for all customer-facing employees, and a direct reporting line to corporate for discrimination incidents." Elena Rodriguez, who had returned to her seat after her phone lost signal, was now frantically trying to reconnect to document the aftermath. Her original live stream had been viewed over 500,000 times, and clips from it were appearing on every major news outlet. Amy Thompson. The young flight attendant was serving passengers with a renewed sense of purpose. The incident had shown her what her job could really mean. Not just serving drinks and snacks, but protecting the dignity of passengers. "Sergeant Major Brooks," she said, as she stopped by his seat, "I want you to know that this experience has changed how I'll do my job." Sam looked up from the book he was reading. "Miss you stood up when it mattered. That's all anyone can ask. I should have spoken up sooner. Sometimes it takes courage to find its voice. You found yours when it counted." Jessica Martinez was coordinating with corporate headquarters on new protocols being developed in real time. Yes, sir, we'll have new procedures for handling discrimination complaints by the time we land in Atlanta. Judge Thomas Anderson was drafting his own statement about the incident. As a federal judge, his witness testimony carried significant legal weight. He'd already been contacted by civil rights organizations interested in ensuring the incident led to broader policy changes. This wasn't just discrimination, he told Marcus Williams, the journalist. This was a teachable moment about how we treat veterans, how we respond to bias, and how corporations can do the right thing when it matters. Marcus was writing what he knew would be the biggest story of his career. His editor had already cleared the front page of the next day's Chicago Tribune. His Twitter account had gained 50,000 followers as people sought authoritative updates on the story. Update: Victoria Chambers banned for life from American Airways. CEO Helena Torres announces Brooks Protocol to protect veteran passengers. Full story coming. The tweet was shared 25,000 times in 30 minutes. In American Airways headquarters, Helena Torres was addressing her entire executive team via video conference. Today we faced a test of our values, she said. A decorated veteran was discriminated against on our aircraft. Our response will define who we are as a company. What's our timeline for implementation? Asked the head of operations. Immediate. I want new procedures in place before our next shift change. I want partnerships with veterans organizations signed by the end of the week. I want every employee to understand that discriminating against veterans is not just morally wrong, it's career-ending. Meanwhile, veterans organizations across the country were mobilizing support for Sam and using the incident to highlight broader issues facing returning service members. The American Legion issued a statement. Sergeant Major Brooks' treatment exemplifies the discrimination many veterans face daily. We commend American Airways for their swift action and look forward to working with them to ensure all veterans are treated with the dignity they've earned. The veterans of foreign wars added, "This incident shows why we must remain vigilant against prejudice. We applaud Captain Mitchell for recognizing and honoring his fellow veteran." Social media was flooded with stories from other veterans who had faced similar discrimination. The hashtag Veteran Stories became a repository for thousands of personal accounts of bias and mistreatment. On the plane, Sam was reading through some of these stories on his phone, connected now to the aircraft's Wi-Fi. Each account reminded him why the morning's confrontation had been about more than just his seat. "Captain," he said, when Captain Mitchell checked on him during the flight, "I'm seeing a lot of stories from other veterans who've gone through similar things. That's why your willingness to work with us on veteran services is so important, Sergeant Major. This can't be just about one flight." Elena Rodriguez was now coordinating with multiple news outlets who wanted to interview her about the live stream. As a social media professional, she understood the power of the platform she'd accidentally created. "I just wanted to document injustice," she told a CNN producer over the phone. "I never expected it to explode like this." Your stream has been viewed over 1 million times and shared on every platform. You've created a cultural moment. The ripple effects were spreading far beyond aviation. Corporate diversity trainers were already being contacted about developing new programs based on the incident. Law schools were planning to use the case in civil rights courses. Military academies were incorporating it into leadership training. Victoria Chambers was finally able to book a seat on a competing airline, but at a cost of $4,800 for a last-minute first-class ticket. Her attempts to use her law firm's corporate travel account were denied after partners voted to distance the firm from the incident. As she sat in the United Airlines first-class lounge, her phone continued buzzing with notifications. Her LinkedIn profile was being flooded with criticism. Her law school classmates were sharing the video in their alumni groups. Legal journalists were calling for comment on how the incident might affect her practice. Back on Flight 1847, passengers were sharing their own social media posts about witnessing the incident. The consensus was overwhelmingly supportive of Sam and appreciative of American Airways' response. Rebecca Santos, a Hispanic marketing executive in row 4, posted on Instagram, witnessed something incredible today. A veteran treated with disrespect, then honored by his pilot and airline. This is how justice should work. Flight 47, Veteran Respect. Her post received 50,000 likes and 10,000 shares within hours. Dr. Patricia Gomez, a pediatrician in row 6, tweeted, "As a daughter of immigrants, I know what discrimination looks like. What I saw today was wrong, but American Airways' response was everything." Do the Right Thing, Flight 1847. The collective witness testimony from passengers was creating an undeniable narrative about what had occurred and how it had been handled. As the flight prepared for its descent into Atlanta, Captain Mitchell made one final announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our descent, I want to thank you all for witnessing and supporting what happened today. You didn't just observe. You participated in ensuring justice was served." The cabin broke into spontaneous applause again. Sam had spent the flight quietly reading and responding to messages of support that were flooding his phone. Military buddies from his deployment were reaching out. Veterans organizations were asking him to speak at events. The attention was overwhelming for a man who preferred quiet recognition to public acclaim. Sir Amy Thompson approached his seat as they prepared for landing. "I wanted to give you this." She handed him a handwritten note signed by the entire crew. Sergeant Major Brooks. "Thank you for your service, your dignity, and your example. You represent the best of America." The crew of Flight 1847. Sam read the note twice, then carefully folded it and put it in his wallet next to a photo of his unit from Afghanistan. As Flight 1847 touched down in Atlanta, both Sam and the broader conversation about veterans' dignity were just beginning their next journey. 6 months later, Sam Brooks stood in the American Airways training facility in Fort Worth, Texas, watching a classroom full of customer service representatives learn about the Brooks Protocol, a comprehensive program designed to ensure veteran passengers never face discrimination again. The program had become the gold standard for airline customer service. Other airlines had adopted similar policies. Airports had implemented veteran recognition programs, and the travel industry had fundamentally shifted its approach to serving military personnel. The key, Sam told the trainees, isn't special treatment. It's equal treatment with dignity. Veterans don't want to be pitied or praised constantly. We just want to be respected as customers and as human beings. Elena Rodriguez was now working as American Airways Director of Social Media Crisis Response, a position created after her live stream demonstrated the power of real-time documentation and authentic storytelling. She'd turned down lucrative offers from larger companies to stay with the airline that had done the right thing. That day showed me that social media isn't just about going viral, she reflected in an interview with 60 Minutes. It's about creating accountability and amplifying voices that need to be heard. Captain David Mitchell had been promoted to chief pilot for Veteran Services, overseeing a program that ensured veteran passengers received appropriate recognition and support. He flew special missions transporting wounded warriors and coordinated with military bases for troop movements. "Sam didn't just save my crew in Afghanistan," he told the American Legion's National Convention. "He saved my understanding of what service really means. It doesn't end when you take off the uniform." Amy Thompson had transferred to the Veteran Services Department, where she worked directly with Sam to develop customer service protocols. Her experience on Flight 1847 had transformed her from a nervous junior employee into a confident advocate for passenger rights. Jessica Martinez had been promoted to senior purser and now trained other flight attendants on recognizing and responding to discrimination. The incident had taught her that neutrality in the face of injustice was complicity. Victoria Chambers' life had taken a dramatically different path. After losing her position at Manning & Associates, facing multiple lawsuits, and becoming unemployable in high-profile legal circles, she'd been court-ordered to complete 200 hours of community service with veterans organizations. Working at a VA hospital, serving meals, and listening to veterans' stories had slowly opened her eyes to the humanity she'd failed to see on Flight 1847. The woman who had once viewed military service as a sign of damage now understood it as evidence of sacrifice. I was raised to believe that success meant looking down on others, she reflected during a mandatory counseling session. It took public humiliation to teach me that true dignity comes from lifting people up. Judge Thomas Anderson had authored a landmark paper on corporate responsibility and civil rights enforcement using the Flight 1847 incident as a case study. His federal court had become a model for handling discrimination cases with swift and decisive action. Marcus Williams had won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of veterans' issues, starting with his live tweeting of the incident. His book, Invisible Warriors: Veterans Fighting for Dignity at Home, had become a bestseller and required reading in journalism schools. Helena Torres had been named CEO of the Year by multiple publications for her handling of the crisis. Under her leadership, American Airways had become the preferred airline for military personnel and their families. Leadership isn't about making the profitable decision, she said in her Harvard Business Review interview. It's about making the right decision and finding ways to make it profitable through excellence. The federal government had implemented the Veterans Dignity in Travel Act legislation, inspired directly by Flight 1847. The law required transportation companies to have specific protections for veteran passengers and created federal penalties for discrimination based on military status. Sam's story had inspired a documentary, multiple books, and congressional hearings on veteran treatment. But he remained focused on the quiet work of helping other veterans transition to civilian life. His cabin in rural Wisconsin had become a retreat center for veterans struggling with their return home. The settlement money from American Airways voluntary compensation had funded scholarships for veterans attending college and job training programs. The money was nice, Sam told a reporter from Military Times. But the real victory was showing that one person willing to stand up can change how institutions treat people. A year after the incident, American Airways invited Sam to be the guest of honor at their annual shareholders meeting. He declined the speaking fee but accepted the opportunity to address the company's leadership. "A year ago, I was just trying to get home," he began his remarks. "I never intended to become a symbol of anything. But sometimes, dignity demands that we become more than we planned." The audience, corporate executives, shareholders, and employees, listened in absolute silence. Veterans don't want your pity. We don't want special treatment. We want what every American wants: to be judged by our character, not our appearance. To be treated with basic human dignity. To know that our service meant something. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Elena Rodriguez, now a vice president, introduced Sam to the company's newest initiative, a partnership with military transition programs to help veterans find careers in the airline industry. "We're not just changing how we treat veteran passengers," she explained. "We're changing who we hire, how we train, and what our company culture looks like." Captain Mitchell, now graying but still flying, had one last surprise for his old friend. He'd arranged for Sam to visit the operations center where young pilots trained on flight simulators. "Sergeant Major," he said as they watched a group of former military pilots learning commercial procedures, "your story is part of our training now. Every pilot learns about Flight 1847 and what it means to stand up for your passengers." Sam watched the young pilots working with their instructors. Many wore military pins on their civilian uniforms. Air Force wings, Navy anchors, Marine Corps emblems. They were transitioning from protecting America in the air to serving Americans in the air. "Sir," one of the pilot trainees approached during a break. "Are you Sergeant Major Brooks?" "I am." "Sir, I served in Iraq. Your story. It meant a lot to a lot of us. Thank you for not backing down." Sam shook the young pilot's hand. "Thank you for serving, and welcome home." As they left the training facility, Captain Mitchell and Sam walked past a wall of photos showing American Airways employees who had served in the military. Sam's photo was there now, not as a passenger, but as a consultant and advocate. David Sam said, using the captain's first name for the first time in their year of working together. I need to ask you something. Anything. Are you happy with how this all turned out? Captain Mitchell was quiet for a moment, watching the sunset paint the Texas sky in shades of orange and red. Sam, that day on Flight 1847, I had a choice. I could have stayed in the cockpit, followed protocol, let someone else handle the situation. It would have been easier. He turned to face his friend. Instead, I got to stand up for the man who stood up for me and my crew when our lives were on the line. I got to watch a company choose principle over profit. I got to see America remember what values really matter. They stood in comfortable silence. Two veterans who had served their country in uniform and continued serving it in civilian clothes. Yeah, Captain Mitchell said finally. I'm happy with how it turned out. Sam nodded, looking out at the aircraft, preparing for evening departures. Somewhere on those planes were veterans coming home, families visiting loved ones, young people starting new chapters in their lives, all of them traveling with a little more dignity because one woman's prejudice had been met with institutional courage. You know what the best part is? Sam asked. What's that? Next week I'm flying American Airways to visit my daughter in California, first class using my veteran benefits, and I'm not worried about how I'll be treated. Captain Mitchell smiled. That's the point, isn't it? Making sure no veteran has to worry about that ever again. As they walked toward the parking lot, Sam reflected on the journey that had brought him from a discriminatory encounter to meaningful change. The morning on Flight 1847 had been painful, but it had also been transformative, not just for him, but for an entire industry and the way America treats its veterans. The boy who had enlisted after 9/11, the soldier who had served multiple deployments, the veteran who had quietly endured discrimination, had become something he never expected, a voice for change, a symbol of dignity and proof that one person's courage to stand up can reshape how institutions treat everyone. Flight 1847 had landed in Atlanta that day, but its real destination had been justice, and it had arrived right on time. Honor isn't found in the class of seat you can afford. It's found in the character you display when no one is watching. Sam Brooks didn't just win a battle that day. He changed how America treats its heroes. If this story moved you, please hit that like button to show your support for our veterans who face discrimination every day. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Sam's message of dignity and courage. And subscribe to our channel because stories like this remind us that one person standing up for what's right can change everything. Your engagement helps us tell more stories that matter, stories that inspire justice, and stories that prove the power of doing what's right even when it's difficult. Thank you for watching, and thank you to all our veterans for your service.